Morning. All right. It's been a morning. It's like, ugh, feeling weird. My emotions are like, today. That's okay. Breathing through it. We're just going through a lot with our house and moving and kids and just a little tired. But still here for book club number 10. That's where we're at. Chapter 10. Grasp the positive benefits of negative experiences. Go a little closer. A failure is a man who blundered but is not able to cash in on the experience. Albert Hubbard. Working artists David Bales and Ted Orland tell a story about an art teacher who did an experiment with his grading system for two groups of students. It is a parable on the benefits of failure. Here's what happened. The ceramics teacher announced on opening day that he was dividing the class into two groups. All those on the left side of the studio, he said, would be graded solely on the quantity of work they produced. All those on the right solely on its quality. His procedure was simple. On the final day of class, he would bring in his bathroom scales and weigh the work of the quantity group, 50 pounds of pots rated an A, 40 pounds a B, and so on. Those being graded on quality, however, needed to produce only one pot, albeit a perfect one, to get an A. This reminds me of the photographer story we shared at convention. Well, came grading time, and a curious fact emerged. The works of the highest quality were all produced by the group being graded for quantity. It seems that while the quantity group was busily churning out piles of work and learning from their mistakes, the quality group had sat theorizing about perfection and in the end had little more to show for their efforts than grandiose theories and a pile of dead clay. It doesn't matter whether your objectives are in the area of art, business, ministry, sports, or relationships. The only way you can get ahead is to fail early, fail often, and fail forward. Take the journey. I teach leaderships. I teach leadership to thousands of people each year at numerous conferences. And one of my deepest concerns is always that some people will go home from the event and nothing will change in their lives. They enjoy the show but fail to implement any of the ideas presented to them. I tell people continually we overestimate the event and underestimate the process. Every fulfilled dream occurred because of dedication to a process. That's one of the reasons I write books and create programs on audio cassette, so that people can engage in the ongoing process of growth. People naturally tend toward inertia. That's why self improvement is such a struggle. But that's also why adversity lies at the heart of every success. The process of achievement comes through repeated failures and the constant struggle to climb to a higher level. Most people will grudgingly concede that they must make it through some adversity in order to succeed. They'll acknowledge that they have to experience the occasional setback to make progress. But I believe that success comes only if you take that thought one step further. To achieve your dreams, you must embrace adversity and make failure a regular part of your life. If you're not failing, you're probably not really moving forward. The benefits of adversity. Psychologist Dr. Joyce Brothers asserts the person interested in success has to learn to view failure as a healthy, inevitable part of the process of getting to the top. Adversity and the failure that often results from it should be expected in the process of succeeding, and they should be viewed as absolutely critical parts of it. In fact, the benefits of adversity are many. Consider these reasons to embrace adversity and persevere through it. Number one, adversity creates resilience. Nothing in life breeds resilience like adversity and failure. A study in Time magazine in the mid 1980s described the incredible resilience of a group of people who had lost their jobs 3 times because of plant closings. Psychologists expected them to be discouraged, but they were surprisingly optimistic. Their adversity had actually created an advantage. Because they had already lost a job and found a new one at least twice, they were better able to handle adversity than people who had worked for only one company and found themselves unemployed. That's all. Number two, adversity develops maturity. Adversity can make you better if you don't let it make you bitter. Why? Because it promotes wisdom and maturity. American playwright William Saroyan spoke to this issue. Good people are good because they've come to wisdom through failure. We get very little wisdom from success. As the world continues to change at a faster and faster rate, maturity with flexibility becomes increasingly important. These qualities come from weathering difficulties. Harvard Business School professor John Cotter says, I can imagine a group of executives 20 years ago discussing a candidate for a top job and saying, this guy had a big failure when he was 32. Everyone else would say, yep, yep, that's a bad sign. I can imagine that same group considering a candidate today and saying, what worries me about this guy is that he's never failed. The problems we face and overcome prepare our hearts for future difficulties. So true. Like, you think about like politicians and how they like pick at their lives, like looking for all the bad things. It's like, okay, but did they overcome it? Right? We're all we all make mistakes. Okay, number three. Adversity pushes the envelope of accepted performance. Lloyd Ogilvy told of a friend who was a circus performer in his youth. The fellow described learning to work on the trapeze. Once you know that the net below will catch you, you stop worrying about falling. You actually learn to fall successfully. What that means is you can concentrate on catching the trapeze swinging toward you and not on falling, because repeated falls in the past have convinced you that the net is strong and reliable when you do fall. The result of falling and being caught by the net is a mysterious confidence and daring on the trapeze. You fall less. Each fall makes you able to risk more. Ooh, that's a good object lesson. Until a person learns from experience that he can live through adversity, he is reluctant to buck mindless tradition, push the envelope of organizational performance, or challenge himself to press his physical limits. Failure prompts a person to rethink the status quo. Number four, adversity provides greater opportunities. I believe that eliminating problems limits our potential. Just about every successful entrepreneur I've met has numerous stories of adversity and setbacks that opened doors to greater opportunity. For example, in 1978, Bernie Marcus, the son of a poor Russian cabinet maker in Newark, New Jersey, was fired from Handy Dan, a do it yourself hardware retailer. That prompted Marcus to team with Arthur Blank to start their own business. In 1979, they opened their first store in Atlanta, Georgia. It was called the Home Depot. Today, the Home Depot has more than 760 stores, employing more than 157,000 people. The business has expanded to include overseas operations, and each year the corporation does more than $30 billion in sales. I'm sure Bernie Marcus wasn't very happy about getting fired from his job at Handy Dan. But if he hadn't been, who knows whether he would have achieved the success he has today. Number five, adversity prompts innovation. This is so true. And you think, like, watch COVID, like, we went through this COVID thing that shut everything down, and our innovation, like, totally so crazy. So cool to watch. All right, adversity prompts innovation. Early in the 20th century, a boy whose family had immigrated from Sweden to Illinois sent 25 cents to a publisher for a book on photography. What he received instead was a book on ventriloquism. What did he do? He adapted and learned ventriloquism. The boy was Edgar Bergen, and for more than 40 years he entertained audiences with the help of a wooden dummy named Charlie McCarthy. The ability to innovate is at the heart of creativity, a vital component in success. University of Houston professor Jack Matson recognized that fact and developed a course that his students came to call Failure 101. In it, Matson assigned students to build mock ups of products that no one would ever buy. His goal is to get students to equate failure with innovation instead of defeat. That way, they will free themselves to try new things. They learn to reload and get ready to shoot again, says Matson. If you want to succeed, you have to learn to make adjustments to the way you do things and try again. Adversity helps to develop that ability. Number 6. Adversity recaps unexpected benefits. The average person makes a mistake and automatically thinks that it's a failure. But some of the greatest stories of success can be found in the unexpected benefits of mistakes. For example, most people are familiar with the story of Edison and the phonograph. He discovered it while trying to invent something entirely different. But did you know that Kellogg's cornflakes resulted when boiled wheat was left in a baking pan overnight? Or that ivory soap floats because a batch was left in the mixer too long and had a large volume of air whipped into it? Or that Scott towels were launched when a toilet paper machine put too many layers of tissue together? Horace Walpole said that in science, mistakes always precede the truth. That's what happened to German Swiss chemist Christian Friedrich Schonben. When one day he was working in the kitchen, which his wife had strictly forbidden, and was experimenting with sulfuric acid and nitric acid. When he accidentally spilled some of the mixture on the kitchen table, he thought he was in trouble. He knew he would experience adversity when his wife found out. He hurriedly snatched up a cotton apron, wiped up the mess, and hung the apron by the fire to dry. Suddenly there was a violent explosion. Evidently, the cellulose in the cotton underwent a process called nitration. Unwittingly, Schonben had invented nitrocellulose, what came to be called smokeless gunpowder or gun cotton. He went on to market his invention, which made him a lot of money. Number 7. Adversity motivates. Years ago, when Bear Bryant was coaching the University of Alabama's football team, the Crimson Tide was ahead by only 6 points in a game with less than 2 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter. Bryant sent his quarterback into the game with instructions to play it safe and run out the clock. In the huddle, the quarterback said, "Coach says to play it safe, but that's what they're expecting. Let's give them a surprise." And with that, he called a pass play. When the quarterback dropped back and threw the pass, the defending cornerback, who was a champion sprinter, intercepted the ball and headed toward the end zone, expecting to score a touchdown. The quarterback, who was not known as a good runner, took off after the cornerback and ran him down from behind, tackling him on the 5 yard line. His effort saved the game. After the clock ran out, the opposing coach approached Bear Bryant and said, "What's this business about your quarterback not being a runner? He ran down my speedster from behind." Bryant responded, "Your man was running for 6 points. My man was running for his life." Nothing can motivate a person like adversity. Olympic diver Pat McCormick discusses this point. "I think failure is one of the great motivators. After my narrow loss in the 1948 trials, I knew how really good I could be. It was the defeat that focused all my concentration on my training and goals." McCormick went on to win 2 gold medals in the Olympics in Helsinki in 1952 and another 2 in Melbourne 4 years later. If you can step back from the negative circumstances facing you, you will be able to discover their positive benefits. That is almost always true, and you simply have to be willing to look for them and not take the adversity you are experiencing too personally. If you lose your job, think about the resilience you're developing. If you try something daring and survive, evaluate what you learned about yourself and how it will help you take on new challenges. If a bookstore gets your order wrong, figure out whether it's an opportunity to learn a new skill. And if you experience a train wreck in your career, think of the maturity it's developing in you. Besides, Bill Vaughan maintains that in the game of life, it's a good idea to have a few early losses, which relieves you of the pressure of trying to maintain an undefeated season. Always measure an obstacle next to the size of the dream you're pursuing. So I feel like I need to read that again. Always measure an obstacle next to the size of the dream you're pursuing. It's all in how you look at it. What could be worse? One of the most incredible um, stories of adversity overcome and success gained is that of Joseph, who was an ancient Hebrew. You may be familiar with the story. He was born the 11th of 12 sons in a wealthy Middle Eastern family whose trade was raising livestock. As a teenager, Joseph alienated his brothers. First, he was his father's favorite, even though he was nearly the youngest. Second, he used to tell his father anytime his brothers weren't doing their work properly with the sheep. And third, he made the mistake of telling his older brothers that one day he would be in charge of them. Some of his brothers wanted to kill him, but the eldest, Reuben, prevented them from doing that. So when Reuben wasn't around, the others sold him into slavery. Joseph ended up in Egypt working in the house of the captain of the guard, a man named Potiphar. Because of his leadership and administrative skills, Joseph quickly rose in the ranks, and before long he was running the entire household. He was making the best of a bad situation. But then things got worse. The wife of his master tried to persuade him to sleep with her. When he refused, she accused him of making advances to her and got Potiphar to throw Joseph in prison, from slavery to prison. At that point, Joseph was in a really difficult position. He was separated from his family, he was living in a foreign land, he was a slave, and he was locked in prison. But again, he made the best of a tough situation. Before long, the warden of the prison put Joseph in charge of all prisoners and the prison's daily activities. Joseph met a fellow prisoner who had been an official in Pharaoh's court, the chief cupbearer, and Joseph was able to do him a favor by interpreting the man's dream. When he saw that the official was grateful, Joseph made a request of him in return. When all goes well with you, Joseph asked, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. For I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon. Joseph had hope a few days later when the official was returned to court in the good graces of the monarch. He expected any minute to receive word that Pharaoh was setting him free, but he waited and waited. 2 years passed before the cupbearer remembered Joseph, and he did so only because Pharaoh wanted someone to interpret his dreams. Finally, the payoff. In the end, Joseph was able to interpret Pharaoh's dreams, and because the Hebrews showed such wisdom, the Egyptian ruler put Joseph in charge of the entire kingdom. As the result of Joseph's leadership, planning, and system of food storage, when famine struck the Middle East 7 years later, many thousands of people who otherwise would have died were able to survive, including Joseph's own family. When his brothers traveled to Egypt for relief from the famine, 20 years after selling him into slavery, they discovered that their brother Joseph was not only alive, but second in command of the most powerful kingdom in the world. Few people would welcome the adversity of a 13 years in bondage. Um, Few people would welcome the adversity of 13 years in bondage as a slave and prisoner. But as far as we know, Joseph never gave up hope and never lost his perspective, nor did he hold a grudge against his brothers. After their father died, he told them, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. He found the positive benefits in his negative experiences, and if he can do it, so can we. Finding the benefit in every bad experience. Um, Finding the benefit in a bad experience is an ability that takes time to develop and effort to cultivate. You can start by thinking of the last major setback and experience and listing all of the benefits that have occurred or might occur as a result. Do that now. Major setback, benefits that occurred. I feel like I definitely have some stuff to write down. And then there's one that says benefits might occur. So I'll share mine. Chris hasn't had a job for 4 months, and the benefits that have occurred, there's been a lot of them actually. Um, so we've been able to get out of some debt, which is interesting because it's in a different way that we never have before. So that's cool. We've been taken care of financially, and we are moving to somewhere that is exciting and that we've never lived, and we're following the Spirit doing that, and that's something that is testing our faith, um, and the patience. We are learning patience. So there's a lot. And then the benefits that might occur. I mean, eventually he's going to get a job, and we'll be able to look back and be more grateful for what we have, and hopefully not just go back to old habits. It says, once you've learned how to go through that process for an event from your past, the next step involves learning to do it as you experience adversity. During the coming week, as you experience problems, setbacks, or failures, take some time at the end of the day to brainstorm all the good things that can come of them and try to maintain a positive mindset as you move forward so that you can keep yourself open to the coming benefits of failure. And so here's the top 10 steps to failing forward. Number 1, realize there's one major difference between average people and achieving people. Number 2, learn a new definition of failure. Number 3, remove the you from failure. Number 4, take action and reduce your fear. Number 5, change your response to failure by accepting responsibility. Number 6, don't let the failure from outside get inside you. Number 7, say goodbye to yesterday. Number 8, change yourself and your world changes. Number 9, get over yourself and start giving yourself. And number 10, find the benefit in every bad experience. All right, so tomorrow, number 11 is take a risk. There's no other way to fail forward. So there's that chapter. And then there's chapter 12, which is make failure your best friend. There's just a few more chapters after that. I think there's only like 16 chapters. So, doing good. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.